Okay, now today is May the 12th, and being May the 12th, this is the second Sunday in May, and that means, in New Zealand at least, it's not all over the world, but in New Zealand, this is Mother's Day. I had a look on Wikipedia, and there's about 30 different days of the year that are actually celebrated as Mother's Day. So I thought there was only just a handful. Apparently there's 30 different days. The 2nd of May, the 2nd of May, the second Sunday of May is one that most countries actually observe. And it was one that basically originated in the United States. It was first celebrated in 1908 at a Methodist church in West Virginia, of all places. There was a lady called Anna Jarvis, and what did she do? She held a memorial for her mother Anne. So her mother Anne had died on the second Sunday in May, about 3 years before that, and her mother was like a peace activist. She cared for wounded soldiers in the American Civil War. She treated people on both sides of the fighting. She had like these mothers' work clubs to address public health issues. She was someone that did a lot of good for people and was trying to help people. And so what Anna did is she wanted to honour her mother by continuing the work that her mother had started. And so she set aside a day to honour all mothers, because she believed, and this is a quote from her, that she said, the person who has done more for you than anyone in the world, that's who your mother is. It's the person who's done more for you than anyone in the world. Now, I can relate to that sentiment with my mum passing away less than 2 weeks ago. And I remember at the funeral, one of my brothers, she talked about how much mum had done for us. She was the one, said, she always drove us to sporting events all over town, at the same time. She'd be going here, there and everywhere. She taught us to read and write. Before we started school, she taught me and my brothers, taught us how to read, taught us how to write. So when we arrived at school, it gives you an advantage when you're not arriving there thinking, I wonder what's going on, when she's actually given you that. Before we even learned to read, she spent a lot of time reading to us. I noticed that's something that my wife does with our kids. She's always reading to them, And I think that's probably one of the reasons why we all love reading. I remember growing up, one of the highlights of Christmas, obviously you get the chocolate and the goodies and stuff, but what you'd spend most of the day on would be like, what's the book that you got? And more often than not, you'd get a book, and you'd devour it on that day, And so maybe that's why she did it, just to get some peace and quiet. But anyway, we're there in the book of Ephesians, chapter number 6. And the verse I want to start with this morning is just at the start of the chapter. Ephesians chapter number 6, verse number 1 says, Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Look at verse 2. Honour thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. So notice verse number 2, it says there, honour thy father and mother. So we'll ignore the fathers from that, we'll just talk about mothers, okay? Honouring your mother. According to the Bible, we should honour our mothers. We should honour our mothers. And understand, this is not just something that Paul just, that was introduced in the New Testament. This wasn't some new commandment that sort of showed up. What he was doing here when he says, honour thy father and mother, he says, which is the first commandment with promise. He's actually referring back to the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments. Look, if you were at the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter number 20. Exodus chapter number 20 and verse number 12. Exodus chapter number 20 and verse number 12. And this is the list of the Ten Commandments that God gave to Moses on the tablets of stone. Exodus chapter number 20, verse number 12. And it says, Honour thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. You don't need to turn there, but in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 16, it says, Honour thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. It says that thy days may be prolonged, or that kind of sounds similar to what we read before. And then it says, and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. And so according to the Bible, honouring your mother, it's one of the keys to having, you want to have a long life? You want to have a good life? Well, according to the Bible, one of the things you should do in order for that to come about is honour your mother. You should be honouring your mother. Turn if you're to Proverbs. Proverbs chapter number 1. Proverbs chapter number 1. Just find Proverbs just after the book of Psalms, right in the middle of your Bible there. Proverbs chapter number 1. Proverbs chapter number 1, look at verse number 8. Proverbs chapter number 1, verse number 8. It says, My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and look at the second part of the verse, and forsake not the law of thy mother. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. So notice what it says. It says, what should you be doing? It says, hear the instruction of the father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. It's saying that your mother has got laws. Your mother's got things, commands that she's telling you, and what should you do? You shouldn't forsake that. Don't forsake the law that your mother gives you. Okay? Because if you obey your mother, if you listen to her wisdom, that's going to have a great effect on your life. That will have a great effect on your life. But of course, not everyone wants to do that though. Not everybody wants to do that. Look back at verse number 7. Look at verse number 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So notice, you've got the father and the mother, they're giving instructions, they're giving laws, they're giving commandments. But in verse number 5 it says, look, fools despise wisdom. Fools despise instruction. They don't actually want to listen to the wisdom that's being given them. Look down at verse number 10. It says, my son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. And notice it's given from the perspective of a parent. He's saying, my son, just like a father would say to a son, or like a mother would say to her son. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us loot privily for the innocent without cause, let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us, let us all have one purse. And so they're saying, come and do this, and they're offering things. They're saying, look, this is going to be good. There's going to be good things that are going to happen if you do this. Okay? But we need to understand that it's not genuine. Like they're offering these things. They're saying, we're going to get the spoil, we're going to get the substance. But is that what happens if we keep on reading? Have a look and see what it says. My son, walk not thou in the way with them, refrain thy foot from their path, for their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the side of any bird. They lay wait for their own blood. They look privily for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. So notice that. It's saying, although they're being offered, hey, look, you're going to get these good things if you lie and wait with us, and we're going to rip people off and steal things. But the mother or the father, they're warning you, say, well, actually, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. It's like you're actually going to, these people who are doing bad things, they're lying in wait for their own blood. People that live wicked, sinful lives, how often do their lives get cut short? The Bible says the wicked shall not live out half their days. And that's the fact. I mean, you think about what's one of the most dangerous cities in the world would be maybe somewhere like Chicago, certain parts of Chicago, a lot of gangs there, and who'd be doing this sort of stuff. Cast in your lot with us. We'll get spoil, we'll get gain, you get drugs, you get women, you get alcohol, you get all these different things. And how long will you live? Will you live to be 20? Will you live to be 25? When isn't it like the murder capital? It's just, and so they're offering these things, but it's not real what's actually happening. Look at verse number 20. It says, look, wisdom crieth without. And notice this, she uttereth her voice in the streets. Notice that, wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity, and scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge? Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. So it's interesting here we see wisdom is personified as a woman. Isn't it? It says, it's a female. She crieth. Listen to her. And so we need to realise the Bible is a book that actually esteems woman. The Bible is a book that actually lifts woman up, that actually honours woman, and mothers in particular. Well, if the Bible does that, we should too. If God says honour your mother, then we should. And so the title of the sermon this morning is Honour Thy Mother. Honour Thy Mother. Now, whether your mother is here with you this morning, maybe she's somewhere else, maybe she's in another country, maybe she's passed on. But each one of us should take the time to honour our mother. Not only on Mother's Day, on whatever particular day may be designated, but every day. So here's the question. How can we honour our mothers? How can we honour our mothers? I've got 4 points this morning. It's going to be a reasonably brief sermon, 4 points. The first point is we need to realise the importance of mothers. The second point is we need to respect our mothers. That's both in our words and also in our actions. The third thing we should do is resolve to make our mothers proud. Make our mothers happy. Make them, we want to make their life good. Don't be a burden to your mother. Don't bring your mother down. And then the fourth thing is we should remember what our mothers have done for us. Remember what our mothers have done for us. Now, it's true, they all sort of start with the same letter. Don't expect that every sermon. It's just a random thing. It just happened to happen. Now, with each of these points, we're going to look at them from the perspective of the person who has a mother. Well, I think that's everyone in the room has a mother. And also from the perspective of being a mother, because some of you may be mothers, some of you will be mothers in the future. And the thing is, if you look in the Bible, you actually find that the word mother occurs, it's about 300 times. About 300 times you'll find the word mother. And the first time it occurs, turn to Genesis chapter number 2. Genesis chapter number 2. Genesis chapter number 2 and verse number 24. This is the first place that the word mother appears in the Bible. And it says in Genesis chapter 2 and verse number 24. And it says, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. So the very first time it occurs, it's saying, hey, look, this is talking about someone getting married and leaving their father and their mother. And so one thing that reminds us is, well, the relationship between a mother and a child is actually temporary. Because, here we see leaving. You're leaving your father and your mother. Now, she's still your mother, even when you've left. But it's something, you should make the most of it while you have it, because you're not always going to have it. I mean, I recently experienced with Mum, she had her first stroke, and then she, a week later she had a second one. She finally passed away. The relationship changed. The relationship changed. And so, although your mother will always be your mother, the dynamics will change. And we need to understand that's what's going to happen. Now, at the start of your life, hopefully at the start of your life, you live with your mother. You live with your mother. But there comes a time, as we just saw in this verse, there comes a time when you should leave home. For this cause shall a man leave father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. And understand, this is an important verse. It's not only is it the first time that the word mother is used, Jesus quoted this verse. When people came and talked to him about divorce, he said, hey, look, this is what, a man shall leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, and then he says, let what God has joined, let not man put asunder, let not man separate. But here's the thing. When someone joins, when they cleave to their wife, when they get married, that's when they leave their father and mother. And so understand, it's not a hard and fast rule. It's not saying you must live with your parents until you get married. But I think it's a pretty good general principle. I think it's a very good general principle. Because I have heard people say this is what should happen. There is no exception. But it's like, well, the Apostle Paul, did he live with his mum? Because Apostle Paul wasn't married. I don't know if you realise that. But having said that, it's still a general good idea that we should be under the authority of our parents. And guess what? When we're ready to grow up, ready to leave home, ready to get married. Because what people like to do these days, they like to say, well, I've grown up and now I'm ready to leave home. I'm not ready to get married yet. I'm not ready to support a family or do anything like that. But I just want to leave. And what they're really saying is they want to leave the authority. And I mean, I've mentioned this before many times. The worst trouble that I've ever got into in my life was in the period after I left home, before I got married. That period of however long it was, probably about 8 years or something like that. That was the worst trouble I ever got into my life. The most sinful things I've ever done. The things that could have had me locked up in prison. Guess when they happened? That's when they happened. Now, I was unsaved then, but the fact is, plenty of Christians get into all sorts of trouble because they're in a situation that's not the best situation to be in. Okay? And so, as I said, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a good principle to bear in mind. Now, let's just look quickly at these points. The first point is we need to realise that mothers are important. You're there in Genesis chapter 2. I actually turned away, but Genesis chapter number 2. Look at Genesis chapter number 3. Genesis chapter number 3 and verse number 20. We need to realise that mothers are important. And here we see that, remember Adam and Eve right at the start? Genesis chapter 3 verse 20. It says, and Adam called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living. So why was Eve called Eve? Because she was a mother. She was the mother of all living. Because obviously every person apart from Adam descends from Eve. Everybody descends from Eve. She was the mother of all living. Now, today, we live in an age where being a mother is something that's kind of devalued. It's something that's not held in high esteem. What do you do for, what's your career? And if someone's like a stay-at-home mum, you've heard that sort of concept? If someone's a stay-at-home mum, well, that's kind of like, it'd be much better to be a doctor, an accountant, or have some career. Have some career. That's much better than being a mother. Well, not according to the Bible, it's not. Look, if you would, at 1 Timothy chapter number 5. 1 Timothy chapter number 5 and verse number 14. 1 Timothy chapter number 5 and verse number 14. 1 Timothy 5:14 says, I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. So what does Paul say the young woman should do? They should marry. They should bear children, and they should guide the house. That means look after the house. Make sure the house is functioning well. Make sure it's things are going the way they should. Look, if you go to Titus chapter number 2. Titus chapter number 2. And look at verse number... Titus chapter number 2, verse number 4, I think it is. Titus chapter 2, verse number 4 says, that they may teach the young women to be sober, that's a good idea, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. So according to the Bible, what are women supposed to be doing? They're supposed to be keepers at home, staying at home, looking after the children, raising the children. Now, that's the opposite. That's the opposite of the message that you'll hear out there. We need to get women in the workforce. We need to get them, out there and being productive. Well, guess what? When they're at home looking after their kids, they're productive. Because what happens if they go into the workforce? I mean, if you have kids, who's going to look after the kids? Well, it's going to be given to someone else to do. Do you think someone else is going to look after your kids better than you do? Do you think they will? My wife used to, when she was... before we got married, she flattered with a daycare worker, and she used to, she got them coming home and describing their day about dealing with these little snots and this, that, and the next thing. And it's like, they didn't have the love of a mother for children at all. It was very, very different. Okay, and so God's given you children. You should look after your children. Look after your children. Look, if you've got 1 Peter chapter number 3. 1 Peter chapter number 3. 1 Peter chapter number 3 and verse number 1. 1 Peter chapter number 3 and verse number 1. 1 Peter chapter number 3 verse 1 says, likewise ye wives be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may be without the word be won by the conversation of their wives, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fair. Remember, we talked about that in Titus, being chaste, whose adorning, let it not be that outward adorning of plaiting the hair, of wearing of gold, of putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart. So it's not about that external appearance. It's about what's going on the inside. And that which is not corruptible, even the ornament, look at this, of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. For after this manner in the old time, the holy women also, who trusted in God, adorned themselves, being subjection unto their own husbands. So notice, we see wives are supposed to be in subjection to their own husbands, but notice they're supposed to have a meek and quiet spirit. They're supposed to be keepers at home. That's describing what a wife, what a mother is supposed to be like. Well, guess what? That really brings to mind a song that we sometimes sing. We sometimes sing Proverbs chapter number 7. Look at Proverbs chapter number 7, because here you see the opposite. Meek, quiet, keeper at home. Have a look at Proverbs chapter number 7, which we often sing. Proverbs chapter number 7. Proverbs 7 verse 1 says, my son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. This is probably the words that a mother's telling her son. Keep my commandments and live, and my law is the apple of thine eye. Bind them upon thy fingers, write upon the table of thine heart. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman. In other words, that's a polite way of saying, don't be stupid. Don't be a fool. Say unto wisdom, you're my sister, call understanding thy kinswoman. Be friends with, be family members, be associated with wisdom and understanding. Why? That they may keep thee from the strange woman. From the strange woman, from the stranger which flattereth with her words. For at the window of my house I looked through my casement, I beheld among the simple ones, I discerned among the youths, a young man void of understanding, passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house. In the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. And I've mentioned before how it's getting darker. It's getting darker. Okay, there's like a progression of sin. But look, it says, look, behold, there met him a woman with the attire of an harlot and subtle of heart. In fact, just think of what we saw in 1 Peter 3, that's kind of the opposite. It's all about her outward adorning, about her appearance, and her heart is not the same as the one that was talked about in 1 Peter 3. She's got a subtle heart. But then look what it says in verse 11. She is loud and stubborn, and her feet abide not in her house. That's the opposite, isn't it? Meek and quiet, keep her at home. Well, this is loud and stubborn, and her feet abide not in her house. It's completely the opposite. And this is not the sort of woman that you want to be around. Okay? So, we need to understand what makes a godly woman, what makes an ungodly woman. Okay? And being a mother, staying at home, looking after her children, that's a godly woman. That's the attributes of a godly woman. And you see, mothers are important. Mothers are very, very important. I mean, did you know that mothers They can set the tone of a home. Did you know that? Have a look at Proverbs chapter number 21. Proverbs chapter number 21, verse number 9. Proverbs chapter number 21 and verse number 9. Proverbs 21, verse number 9, it says, "It is better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house." So what does that mean? It's like you're better off just being dwelling in some corner, some tiny wee place, rather than a wide, luxurious place if you've got a brawling woman. That's a woman who's fighting, who's contentious, who's causing strife. Look at verse number 19. It says, "It's better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and an angry woman." Why? Because the whole tone of the house can be set by the woman. Look at verse number 27. Proverbs chapter 27, verse number 15. Proverbs 27 and verse number 15. Proverbs 27 and verse number 15. It says, "A continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike." A continual dropping, thing, drip, 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 and you can think like that sort of nagging, like getting on someone's nerves. Look at chapter number 14, Proverbs 14 and verse number 1. Proverbs 14 and verse number 1. Proverbs 14:1. It says, "Every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with her hands." A wise woman, what does she do? She's building up her house. She's making her house a good place. Whereas the foolish one, they pluck it down with their hands. And so we need to understand, look, if you've got an unhappy mother, you've got an unhappy home. If you've got a happy mother, you've got a happy home. Okay, so it's actually been said, I read this quote, it said, "Children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work. They're the most important work." Now, people might agree with that thought. People say, your children, they're really important. Children are really important. But do we take action on that? Do we take action on that? I mean, think about your children. Do you give your children your full attention? Do you give them their full attention? Or do you get distracted? Do you get distracted? Today's the day we live in the electronic device age, isn't it? And it's so easy. And each one of us can be guilty of this. We can spend time with our electronic devices, But when you do that, the child will pick up, "Well, I'm not important. I'm not important to you." I think maybe if we thought of it differently, if we thought, imagine if raising children was like an Olympic sport. Imagine if it was an Olympic sport. Imagine if you could win a gold medal, you could be the world champion, you could get fame, and imagine if that's what it was. How much effort would people put in to succeed at raising children? How much effort would they put in? I think they'd put in a lot. But guess what? Raising children is much more important than any sort of Olympic sport, any sort of medals you could do. And so imagine if you treated it like it was important, you'd give it time, you'd give it attention, you'd give it energy. And understand, I'm not saying, to be confused here, I'm not saying that you should be 24/7, you should be focused on your children. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's actually not healthy. It's not healthy for you, it's not healthy for your children. You need time, everyone needs time to rest, to refresh themselves. But when you're with your children, be with your children. Spend quality, focused time with them. Read a book to them, and don't be on what's going on Facebook at the same time. Don't be doing, and now, if there's something you need to do, then say, "This is the time I'm going to do it, I'm going to do that." Because this is nothing. It's okay for children to be, have time by themselves. And I'm not saying, go and desert your children and stuff and leave them by themselves. What I'm saying is, you've got a toddler. You spend time reading to that toddler. You read to them. They learn the love of reading. But then you say, "Okay, now you're going to sit here and quietly play with your toys while Mum's going to do this." And that's what we did with our kids. When they were little, we taught them. We had, what was that? It's been so long, I sort of forget. You had like a mat. Now I'm sure people probably could do it with you have these play pens and you just pop them in there. But then it's kind of like they're like some animal and you're shaking to get out. We just put a mat on the floor, like a wee rug or something, put it on the floor with some toys or some books, things are allowed, and you stay on that mat. And you don't come off that mat. And you teach them to stay on that mat. There's consequences if you come off that mat. And then they learn it. And it doesn't take long. They realise, you get the mat out, you put the things down. Boom. Now, does it mean you leave them there all day? No. But they should be able to sit there. Sit there for half an hour. Sit there for an hour. They learn that they can do that. Obviously, depending on the age, as they get older, they can learn skills of concentration. Guess what? That's something that's going to help them. You know? So here's the thing. Mothers are important. Mothers are important. We need to realise mothers are important. And if you are a mother, then realise that you are important. You're impacting the lives of future generations. Okay, so that's the first thing. Mothers are important. The second thing, we need to respect our mothers. Respect our mothers, both in the things that we say and the things that we do. In our words and our actions. Remember we started in Ephesians chapter 6. It said, children, obey your parents and Lord, for this is right. Honour thy father and thy mother, which is the first commandment with promise. We need to be honouring them. We need to be honouring our mothers. It says in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, it talked about their giving honour unto the wife as well. You know, all these verses where it talks about, wives are supposed to submit themselves to their husband. Don't get the idea it's saying, okay, well, the husband, he's the boss, he's in charge, and the wife, she's just a doormat, she just walks away. No, the Bible says that husbands are supposed to honour their wives, and it says, lest your prayers be not hindered. Guess what? If you don't treat your wife with honour, you don't treat her with respect, do you think God's going to listen to you when you're praying? God's be like, no, sorry, your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God. Your sins have hid his face from you that he will not hear. Guess what? If you're not honouring your wife, that's a sin. And so God is not, he's going to be turning away his ear. He's not going to be paying attention. Now, if you look in the dictionary, it describes honour. To honour something is to regard something with great respect, to esteem something highly. The opposite of that would be to despise something or disrespect something. Turn if you would to Proverbs chapter number 30. Proverbs chapter number 30. While you do, I'll read Proverbs 15:20. Proverbs chapter number 30 and verse number 11. Proverbs 15:20 says, a wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish man despiseth his mother. A foolish man despiseth. That's the opposite. If you despise, that's the opposite of respecting and honouring. You're then Proverbs chapter number 30. Proverbs chapter 30, verse number 11. It says, there is a generation that curseth their father and doth not bless their mother. There is a generation that are pure in their own eyes and yet is not washed from their filthiness. There is a generation how lofty are their eyes and their eyelids are lifted up. And so this is talking about someone, they don't bless their mother. What do? They're lifted up with pride. They think they're esteeming themselves high rather than esteeming their mother to be high. Look at verse number 17. The eye that mocketh at his father and despiseth to obey his mother, the ravens of the valley shall pick it out, and the young eagles shall eat it. Notice that. The eye that mocks his father and despiseth to obey his mother. Because remember, the mother had laws. He said, look, don't forsake the law of your mother. Well, guess what? If you want to honour your mother, if you want to treat her with respect, how about this? Be an obedient child. Be an obedient child. Children should obey their mother when they're young. Definitely, everyone understands that. But even when you grow up and are no longer a child, you shouldn't forsake the things that she taught you. Don't forsake the law of your mother. In other words, when you grow up and you're an adult, guess what? Your mother can't say, do this and do that, because you're a grown-up now. You're not her child. When you're a child, your mother can say, pick up that, tidy the room, do the dishes. She can say that because you're a child. But when you grow up, you live in your own house, you've got your own family, your mum can't come around and start ordering you around. Now, some mums will try and do that, but that's not right. And you don't have to obey. But your mother, if she's a godly mother, will have taught you God's laws, taught you what's right and what's wrong. Don't forsake that. Don't think, well, I've grown up now. And so now, well, I know mum said not to do that. But now I'm grown up, I'm going to go off and do all those things she told me not to do. No, that's a foolish thing to do. Look at Proverbs chapter number 1. Proverbs chapter number 1 and verse number 8. Proverbs chapter 1 verse number 8. I said, my son, hear the instruction of thy father and forsake not the law of thy mother. In other words, keep holding on to it, keep remembering it. Look at Proverbs 6 verse 20. Proverbs 6 verse 20. It says, my son, keep thy father's commandment and forsake not the law of thy mother. Turn to Proverbs chapter number 23. Proverbs chapter number 23, another one that we often sing. Proverbs chapter number 23 and verse number 22. Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, Proverbs 23:22, and despise not thy mother when she is old. That means treat her with respect. Treat her with respect. We should respect our mothers. We should honour our mothers. We realise they're important. but we should actually respect them and treat them with that respect. Now, just on the other side of the coin as well, maybe you are a mother. How does this kind of apply to you? Well, you should treat yourself with respect. Respect yourself. Realise that you got an important job. And treat yourself well. I mean, think about it. If you love someone, if you honour them, if you respect them, are you going to treat them like dirt? No, well, don't treat yourself like dirt then. Because some mothers, they can get this, and it can probably be easy to get this martyr complex. To think, I'm just gonna, do everything for everyone and never have time for myself. I mean, isn't that the thing? You think about a mother and she's putting out the food for everyone, and yet she's too busy in the kitchen to actually get herself something, to sit down and relax and enjoy herself. No, give yourself some rest. Give yourself some sleep. Give yourself some recreation. Some time to yourself. Do things that are going to make you happy. Because when you do that, guess what? You're going to be happier. The people around you are going to be happier. Go for a walk in nature. Get some exercise. Eat some good food. Think what is things that are actually good for me, and do those things, and that will help you to be a better mother. Third point, just going quickly through. So we've had realise mothers are important, respect our mothers and what we say and what we do. Third one is resolve to make our mother happy. Resolve to make our mother happy. And specifically with regard to us, happy with us. Proud of us. Pleased to be our mother. We're there in Proverbs chapter 23. We just read verse 22. It said, hearken unto thy father begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she is old. Verse 23, buy the truth and sell it not. Also wisdom and instruction and understanding. Look at this, verse 24. The father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that bare thee shall rejoice. So look, you want to make your mother glad? You want your mother to rejoice? What do you need to do? Be righteous. Be righteous. Think about what is that? What's the purpose of mothering? What's the idea behind a mother? The purpose of a mother, really, is to raise godly children. That's the purpose, to raise godly children. Look, if you keep your finger in Proverbs, I'm sure we'll be back again soon, but look at Malachi, last book in the New Testament, Malachi chapter number 2. Malachi chapter number 2 and verse number 15. Malachi chapter number 2 and verse number 15. And it says, and did not he make one, it's talking about the union between a husband and a wife. Yet had he the residue of the Spirit. And wherefore one? Why did he make the two one? That he might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none of you deal treacherously against the wife of his youth. And it goes on, talks about how God hates divorce. He hates putting away. But notice the purpose. Why did he make the two one? For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and these two shall be one flesh. Why? Because he sought a godly seed. Okay? Having godly children. Well, look, think about how can you make your mother happy? How can you make your mother proud this Mother's Day? Give her a card, give her a present. Look, the best thing you can do is actually be a godly son or a godly daughter. Be a righteous person. A righteous person. Understand, it's not the righteousness, that we're talking about, the righteousness of faith, that just having Christ's righteousness. Hey, that's great to be saved, absolutely. But there is another righteousness. A righteousness which means doing what's right. Doing what's right. Okay? And guess what? That's going to make your mother happy. In fact, that's going to make any mother, say even if your mother's not a believer, guess what? She's still going to be happy if you do what's right. She's still going to be happy if you do what's right. If you be a godly child. Look back at Proverbs chapter 23 again. Look at Proverbs chapter number 23. Proverbs chapter 23. Look at verse number 15. It says, look, my son, if thine heart be wise, my heart shall rejoice, even mine. So the mother's saying, look, if your heart's wise, O son or O daughter, well, it's a son here, but it'll apply for daughters too, my heart shall rejoice, even mine. Your mother's going to be happy if you're wise. Yea, my reins shall rejoice when thy lips speak right things. The reins, that's like related to the mind. I think you've got a reins that guides a horse. You steer it with reins. Guess what? Your mind is the thing that steers you. That's what decides where you go. Guess what? My reins shall rejoice when thy lips speak right things. Let not thine heart envy sinners, but be thou in the fear of the Lord all the day long. For surely there is an end, and thine expectation shall not be cut off. Hear thou, my son, and be wise, and guide thine heart in the way. So notice, it's about listening. You've got to listen and guide their heart in the way. And then look, here's some practical advice. Be not among wine bibbers, among rioters, eaters of flesh. Don't hang out with people that are drunkards and gluttons. In fact, that's what it says in the next verse. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags. Think about that as a mother. You want your son, you want your daughter hanging about with drunkards and gluttons because he's going to be, he's going to come to poverty. He's going to be dressed in rags. Who wants that for their children? I don't want that for my children. Imagine walking along and you haven't seen one of my children lately. Oh, there they are in the street and they're begging. They're begging on the street, dressed in rags. Imagine that. Would that make you happy? Would that make you glad? Or would that make you sad? Make you really sad? Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she's old. Buy the truth and sell it not, also wisdom and instruction and understanding. The father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. So be wise. Be wise. Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that bare thee shall rejoice. My son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways. So obviously, it's important as a parent to set the example for your children. Let your eyes observe my ways. Follow me. Set the example for them. For a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit. So warning, beware of the strange woman. That's what we saw in Proverbs chapter number 7. She also lieth in wait as for prey, and increaseth the transgressors among men. Verse 29, who hath woe, who hath sorrow, who hath contentions, who hath babbling, who hath wounds without cause, who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine. They that go to seek mixed wine. Like we live, obviously we're right near the university here. And someone was just telling me the other day, the university owns pubs or something, does it? Owns starters bars, someone was telling me. I mean, people send their kids away to a university, supposedly educated, but the stuff that goes on should make any mother ashamed. Because it's just, it reminds me of what it talks about in the book of Isaiah, about the tables are filled with vomit. Sounds like around here. You go somewhere, you're knocking, that's what you find. It's like a garbage dump. He says, look, they that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. The Bible says, look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth its colour in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent and stingeth like an adder. You see, notice it's at the last, not at the start. You see, the person, the drunk that's in the street, that's dressed in rags, that's begging, is that how it started? Or that, no, we'll just have a few drinks. We'll just have a few drinks. And they started down a path, and it kept on going. Thine eyes shall behold strange woman, thine heart shall utter perverse things. And it goes on, describes, when shall I wake, I'll see you again. It's addictive, all these bad things. Well, guess what? That's not going to make any mother happy. If you're off with harlots, it's not going to make your mother happy. Harlot, prostitute. That's not going to make your mother happy. If you're a drunk, if you're a glutton, if you're a wicked person, that's going to make any mother ashamed. She's not going to be rejoicing. Okay? Now, so the last thing, so we want to make our mothers happy. Make our mothers happy. And then the last thing is remember. Remember what our mothers have done for us. Our mothers have done a lot for us. We should be thankful for all the good things that our mothers have done. Now, we understand that no mother is perfect. Guess what? Your mother, my mother, everyone's mother. They're sinners just like all of us are. But if we want to give them honour, we can remember and celebrate the good things that they've done. Because everybody's mother has done some good things. They risked their lives in having children. They risked their lives having children. They gave up sleep. They sacrificed their time. If your mother is still around, thank her for what she did. Buy her a card. Buy her a present. Ring her up if she's a long way away. Even better than that, though, be a godly person. Be a godly person, because that will make your mother happy. So we should remember the good things about your mother. And let's say you are a mother, then look, remember the things that you've done as a mother. Celebrate your successes. Celebrate, you've taught your kids, maybe you've taught your kids to read. Maybe you've taught your kids to tie up their shoelaces or just be nice to people. It's amazing when someone says to you, hey, about your kids, they're good kids. They're really nice kids. They're really polite kids. It's like, that warms your heart. It's great when someone does it. And what that means, because part of the idea of parenting, part of the purpose of parenting is to raise children that people want to be around. I mean, you think of an obnoxious child. Do you want to be around an obnoxious child? Well, guess what? Obnoxious children often will grow up and be obnoxious adults. And people don't want to be around them either. You know? And you know where you can find a bunch of obnoxious people? You often find them locked up. They lock them up because they don't follow rules. They don't listen to the laws of their mother or anyone else's laws, for that matter. That's why, it's why it's important we learn these things. The title of the sermon is Honour Thy Mother. Honour thy mother. How can you honour your mother? Look, realise that mothers are important. It's not some second-rate job. It's a first-rate job. It's a first-rate job. The job they do, it's very important. Treat her with respect with what you say and also with what you do. Resolve, I'm going to make my mother happy. Give her a Mother's Day present, flowers or chocolate or something. Hey, be godly. Be a godly son, be a godly daughter. And then lastly, remember what she's done for you. Because look, one day that's all you'll be able to do is remember. One day you won't be able to buy a card or a chocolate or anything. One day you won't be able to tell her anything. So while you can, tell her how much she means to you. Tell her how thankful you are. Tell her that you love her and show it with your actions. Look at 1 John chapter number 3, verse number 18. 1 John chapter number 3 and verse number 18. 1 John chapter number 3 and verse number 18, it says, My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. Hey, it's great to say you love your mother. And we didn't get there, but in Proverbs 31 it talks about that. Remember the thing about the virtuous woman? Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. It's fine to do that, but let it not just be in word, but let it also be in deed. Look at 2 John. 2 John, verse number 4. I rejoice greatly that I found of thy children walking in truth, as you have received a commandment from the Father. So look, you want to cause someone to rejoice? Do what's right. And now I beseech thee, lady, not as I wrote a new commandment unto thee, but that which we have from the beginning, that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk after his commandments. That's what love is. That's what love is. In fact, it says in 1 John 5:3, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. Look at 3 John chapter 1. Verse number 4 says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. You can give your mother joy. You can give her a lot of joy by being a godly child, being a righteous child, and being a godly and righteous adult as well. Honour thy mother. Honour thy mother. With what you say, send her a card, give her a ring, but live a life that will make your mother happy. Let's pray. Gracious Lord, we thank you for your word, and Lord, I just pray that you'd help each one of us, whatever experiences we've had with our mothers, help us to be thankful for every good thing that they did. Let us remember to tell them the things that they've done. Be thankful to thank them for those things. Thank you for giving us mothers. Thank you that, the way you've organised life, that we're raised at the start of our life, we're helpless. We're dependent on our mothers for our very food. Lord, help us to make our mothers proud. Thank you and praise you and love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.